Okay.
Yeah. To keep an eye on the chat, because I can't keep an eye on both chats. It's just too much.
Yep.
To keep an eye on me,
An
Doctor.
eye on you. All right.
Only
I
on me.
see.
It's
I think it's pretty much me too. I think.
Oh, I see. All right. Same old rules, guys. Ones and twos.
All right.
Rebecca,
And
I
we are
apparently
live.
not
We've actually
watching
been
that,
live for the last
Oh.
20 seconds or so.
Okay.
Hi everyone. Hello, Lior. Oh, Bobo coming in hot once as usual with the first super chat. We'll get to that in a bit. How's everyone doing? We have quite a few topics to talk about. So before we begin, for those who don't know, my name is Guy. I'm an Israeli geopolitical analyst, an aspiring cognitive scientist and philosopher, and I'm the resident Middle Eastern analyst for Liberty Politics. And we're going to talk about recent developments in the Middle East, Iran, Syria, Turkey, the Mecca agreement, the border of peace in Gaza, Israel fighting back finally against the propaganda. And we'll see some of that propaganda in action, actually. We'll also talk a bit about Saudi Arabia changing its curriculum and some internal stuff in Israel. Likud just had its internal primary elections. The results are interesting. We'll talk about what they are and what they mean for the future and for potentially the next government. One of the unity parties just announced that they'll not be in a government under Netanyahu, which is a step in the wrong direction. But at the end of the day, it's not going to matter if they're not going to be, like, if there's going to be a united front of several parties that are the unity parties, they're going to have to make concessions. Okay, and Bobo has a good question that I'll get to soon. But before I start, and Leo saying please support Guy and subscribe to his channel. Thank you, Leo. The channel is also in the description. So like the link is there. You can press it that way. You can get to it that way. Okay, so before I begin, does anyone else have any questions or things they'd like to talk about? I'll give you 5 seconds, and if no one speaks up, then we will move on. Okay, so the first question by Bobo. It's not quite my area of expertise. So I guess because I'm a cognitive scientist, maybe I'll have something to say about this. I think there's a long way to go. So the question is, can AI create the Scott Adams / Musk of the future? So first of all, thank you for the super chat, Bobo. Now, those are two very different things, very different people. Scott Adams, even though he's like a polymath, he's a jack of all trades. At the end of the day, is mainly known for being a comic book artist. He also, in his later years, had a podcast. And Elon Musk is an innovator, like an entrepreneur. I personally think he's the greatest innovator of our time. But he's also very controversial, and that's I can defend the claim, but it'll take a long time, and that's not the purpose of this this discussion. But the question isn't, can AI create like the genius of the future? In some ways, yes. So this is my personal opinion. I'm not an expert. Hey, Jose. In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. Or at the very least, it's going to take a long time before it can. Because AI right now works off of symbols. And there's a huge difference between interpreting symbols and interacting with them. So like affecting the real world, doing stuff with the real world. Tesla, among other companies, is now working on that problem with the robotics angle. But before that's solved properly, you're not going to have AI that's able to solve a large chunk of the kind of problems that we're dealing with. Now, as far as intelligence goes, I'm not sure. Like the way intelligence works in humans and the way it works in AI, as far as I can tell, is very different. It emerged differently. For example, humans have two hemispheres, and it's critical that humans have two hemispheres. I highly recommend, I believe I mentioned him before, Dr. Ian McGilchrist. He's a neuroscientist, and so this is how you spell his name. He's a neuroscientist, and he researched for a long time the differences between the left hemisphere and right hemisphere, and it's not clear whether AI can do the type of things that the right hemisphere does. And I'm not going to get into it now. I will do a stream about it, like a philosophical stream at some point. I also have a lecture that I gave in Hebrew. I'll try to see what's the best way to translate it so I can upload it, because it is recorded. But AI can do logic very well given certain parameters, but logic, and again, this is highly philosophical. I'll mention it very briefly. If people are interested, I can expand more. Logic only works insofar as you have good first assumptions, like good axioms to work off of. Logic does not get you. You can't get to stuff out of logic, out of pure logic. Logic gets you somewhere from somewhere. You can get to B from A, and B would be correct if you're using logic correctly, but you must have A initially. And it's not clear that AI can generate good A's. I hope that was clear. If not, like, this is not the stream where I would talk about this kind of stuff. But if people are interested, let me know in the comments, either on stream or afterwards in the video description. Because I can say a lot about this. It's an area of great interest to me. It's just not exactly the place to talk about it, but thank you for the super chat, Bobo. Hope I managed to satisfy. Oh, Ian McGilchrist is old stuff. Interesting. Okay, so in the sense, so Bobo was saying Ian McGilchrist is old stuff. In the sense that he has been debunked, or like, what do you mean by he's old stuff? If you have more cutting edge stuff that I can look at, I'd love to. Another super chat by Bobo. So this sort of shifts the order in which I was going to talk about things. Why was Likud politicians who were in favor of the Emirati solution shunned? This is a byproduct. This is not the reason they were shunned. The main the main proponent of the Emirati plan in Likud also happens to be someone who tried to do a coup on Netanyahu after October 7th. And he was shunned for those reasons. He's also not a very competent minister. Like he was too populistic to be a minister of finance, which is what he was. And a lot of the sort of people who would be on his side are not on his side because of that. And so it's bad luck, but he is almost assuredly, if the Likud is in the next in the next government, in whatever capacity, either as prime minister, either leading the government or just being a part of the government, he is going to be part of the Knesset, most likely. It would be, unless Netanyahu has the power to like politically assassinate him by using his, like, by dropping him further down the list. He's right on the edge of where he's viable. And unless Netanyahu does that, which he could, because this guy tried to do a coup on him, he is going to be part of the next Knesset and would therefore be able to, at least ostensibly, to continue the work. But he's also not the only one. Like Amichai Shikli, who got a pretty respectable result, is also a proponent of the Emirates solution, and he's a very serious politician, and I trust that he would also be able to advance it. For those who don't know, really quickly, I mentioned this a bunch of times, the Emirati solution is a solution to the Palestinian problem, wherein instead of the Palestinian Authority, they'll have 7 or 8, or depending on, like, there are different ways to parse it, but several different city-states, essentially. The Palestinian, and it's a bit like the Emirate solution, because the UAE is United Arab Emirates. It's several Emirates united under one flag. And so this is a plan that I'm a proponent of. I think that would be the solution eventually to the Israeli-Palestinian problem. But you need people to push for it. And Balkat was the main proponent of that. So thank you for the super chat. And might as well talk about the internal elections in the Likud now. So the problem with the Likud is that it has people that on the first time they're joining the Knesset, they're going to be like representatives of regions, and so they can get in with like 1,000 votes in the primary. And then you get some really low quality people as a result. And a lot of those people in the last war just said outrageous things for the purpose of riling up what they thought the base of Likud voters is. Like, we need to remove all the Arabs from Israel and stuff like that. And almost all of them got rejected by the voters. They're in unrealistic slots, like very unrealistic slots. They're not going to be part of the next Knesset. And for the most part, the list of candidates is like decent. And it's not fantastic. There are people that I wish would have been higher that aren't. But it's like a decent enough list. A lot of the bad apples have been removed by the Likud primary voters. And this is a list that can be reasonably part of any government, assuming they don't shun Netanyahu again. Because the Likud voters are not going to throw Netanyahu under the bus to join a government. This has been tried before. And they can be part of any reasonable, like, center right, center left government, like a broad government of Zionism. So it's a good list. That's the bottom line. It's a good list. It will still probably advance the Emirates solution if Netanyahu deems it a good solution, which he's like on the fence about it, as far as what we can tell from reports that we've had. Yeah, so let me know if you have any questions about that. Just before I get to the group, HVAC Soldier is asking, Israel has primaries. Israel has internal party primaries for the list of candidates. So in Israel, the election is you choose a party, and you get, and however many seats that party gets, you go through the list from top to bottom, and you give them that you give them those slots. Okay. So HVAC, hopefully that answers the question. So for two of those parties, most parties are just the leader chooses who's there. But for two parties, the Democrats and Likud, you actually have a proper primary where voters get to choose. The problem is that this can also be gamed. So you have like lobby groups and so on that cause the party to be less meritocratic than it otherwise would be. You have people who are good at politicking getting top slots. So Eli Cohen, for example, who got the top slot in Likud, he's like, okay, but he's not as talented as that would suggest. He got there because he's good at politicking. Okay, so thank you for the question. So Boba, I'm gonna need you to translate this, but top and bottom brain, I haven't heard about this, but what McGilchrist argues for is not the classic left-right division. That's really important to understand. The classic left-right division in the brain is wrong. But that's not McGilchrist is not arguing that the right brain does this and the left brain does that. They both do everything, but they do it in different ways. It's about attention more than more than anything else. Now I think because you say homunculus, I think I've seen the paper you're talking about McGilchrist. I was thoroughly unimpressed by it, and I thought it missed the point that McGilchrist was trying to say. Okay, and I'll briefly read your stuff. I won't talk about it anymore on stream because that's not the topic of conversation. But it's interesting that you're interested in brain science as well. Okay, UJ Becker. I'm expecting to see Amigo Vivi join the list as at the top spot as well. Yeah. So Netanyahu also has a lot of people he can just choose that will be part of the list, and seemingly he's going to make it a much higher quality list as a result of these choices. For example, Amir Avivi, who is a very distinguished general, who's right wing. Yeah. Okay. So, Haldor, are there any questions in the group about that, specifically about the Likud elections?
Not yet.
Okay. Great. Okay. Now, I said a lot of what I said was regarding if Likud is in the next government, because right now, like today, Zionist Home, one of the Halda, if I send you a link, would you be able to share it in the?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me find it. Okay, can you share this?
Okay. You have to give me the share screen or permission.
I have to give you. Okay.
Yeah.
Allow video. Oh, sorry. Allow screen sharing.
Okay, Casey.
Okay, so while you're doing that, I'll answer HVAC's question. Okay, so the party votes on who is going to be at the top of the list versus who is going to be towards the bottom of the list. Those towards the bottom of the list are less likely to be in the Knesset. Yes, correct. The party votes. So the more votes you get, the higher up the list you are, and the higher up the list you are, the more chance you have of getting into the actual Knesset members list in the general election. Marigold is saying, I know Ben-Gvir isn't Likud, but I truly hope that he won't be in the next government. Yeah, so actually the one person that was decent in Ben-Gvir's party, in my mind, actually switched to Likud and he got pretty high on the list in Likud just now. And actually sort of gave a snide remark aimed at Ben-Gvir afterwards. But yeah, I also hope he's not part of the next government. And if there's a unity government, he's not going to be. I don't want him, and I don't want the ultra-Orthodox. I'm fine with Smotrich in the next government because he's fundamentally a serious person. You know, you can agree or disagree with his positions, but he does the work. And with some of his positions, I agree, and with some I don't. When is your general election? The end of October, 24th or 27th. I don't remember. One of those dates. Okay, so thank you, Halda. So this is the list of parties. Zionist Home is supposed to be, you see in the middle, it's the middle one. It's supposed to be like the pro-unity government party, except that it is a left-leaning pro-unity government party, meaning it's leaning towards the anti-Netanyahu bloc. So it's not quite a unity party. But if push comes to shove, which I suspect that it will, they will have to join forces with the other unity parties, one of which is blue and white, which is the one to the right of it. And the other is that isn't yet part of this, because it's the newest party, is the party that's called Unity, which is the right-leaning party. And they're the actual, like, if I were to find where I am on the spectrum, that would be the party that would most closely resemble my general opinions, although they don't have a portfolio yet, and so I don't know where they stand economically and stuff like that. But generally, that would be the kind of party. Like if I had to vote for a party, it would be the party that's actually not on this list yet. But that party is likely going to have to join forces with Zionist Home and with Blue and White to actually properly get an actual unity 27th. Okay, so Bob was saying 27th. So the election is going to be on the 27th of October. So these two parties are going to have to unite with the new right wing party to properly get, and potentially there are other up and comers as well, but they're very low in the voter count. But they might join forces as well and get like a proper. Actually, we're not part of either bloc party going, because Zionist Home is ostensibly not part of any bloc, but practically speaking, it is part of this bloc, of the Yashar, the Eisenkot, the anti-Netanyahu bloc. Okay, good. Thank you, Halda. Any questions about that? No. Okay. Was there anything that I missed? Okay, so Alexan is saying, I like the Emirate plan in theory. However, we did try something similar before with the Village League. What needs to be done differently?
Hold on. She's actually going to talk here. Guy, I do have a question from Shauna. She wants to know what United Torah Judaism is.
United Torah Judaism, I'm pretty sure I'm going to make sure that this is, like, it's an ultra-Orthodox party. Yes. That's the Yahadut Torah. It's the Ashkenazi ultra Orthodox party, basically. Shauna, do you have anything specific you would like to know about it? I assume she can't. Thank you. Not at the moment. Okay. So also, Halda, I see you're asking what's Aliyah, and you had a student with that name last term. Presumably, that student wasn't Jewish.
I don't think so, but I mean, I'm just curious when I saw that name come up.
Right. So Aliyah literally means going up. It's what we call Jews emigrating into Israel. And then Yerida, going down, is Jews emigrating outside of Israel. And the student you had was probably Aliyah, which is more of an Arabic or Arabic adjacent name.
It's fascinating. I just love to know the origins of names. So thanks. Appreciate it.
Sure. Okay. So, Alexan, so we did try something similar before with the Village League. What needs to be done differently this time for the plan to succeed? First of all, we can learn from the mistakes of the past. The Village League, I think, is that like before Oslo? Let me see. Yeah. 1 second. Yeah. So that was what we tried to do before Oslo. First of all, the conditions are very different on the ground, and now we have the sheikhs in Hebron who are much more willing to play ball, and they'll get a lot of would get a lot of benefits out of it. Israel is way stronger now than it was, way more economically powerful, and now they've also experienced what it's like to have a centralized government under the corrupt PA. and so presumably a lot of them will be more willing to play well. Now, it's going to be a long-term solution, so you're going to have to do it like village by village. So you start with Hebron, and then Hebron joins the Abraham Accords, and then hopefully they get prosperity as a result, and then like other villages will join, and then you'll still have some terror bases like Nablus, but over time those will be the exception and not the rule, and you'll have like the whole of the Palestinian leadership that isn't the PA that actually is accepting Israel, and so the pressure will then go on those other places. And now that we have the Abraham Accords, there's a framework that they can join. Now, is it guaranteed to work? Absolutely not. But I think it's the best solution we have in the PA. Like I lost faith in the PA, and I used to have faith in the PA. I used to be more on the left. And thank you for the question. Rodna is saying she's interested in the two hemispheres and human versus AI and so on. I would love to hear more, gladly, but not on this stream. Okay, so let's talk a bit about the news. So as far as, just really quickly for those who haven't watched recently what's going on with Iran, the 60-day U.S.-Iran negotiation deadline expired. The U.S. is saying don't want to extend it. The IRGC and the occupiers of Iran are saying, well, they have several weeks to extend to fulfill their end of it, or we're gonna do stuff. But U.S. is like, nah, we're not. It's done. It's over. Now, presumably, the regime is very desperate right now. The blockade is suffocating them, absolutely suffocating them. And as a result, a senior official from the regime told Reuters that Tehran is shifting towards a fully offensive posture and could conduct a timely and precise attack to break the U.S. naval blockade if diplomacy fails. Diplomacy has failed, and they're not able to do a timely and precise attack to break the U.S. naval blockade. It's very, very difficult for them to do that. Also, Iran, like the regime is negotiating with Oman about creating their own lane. And Trump said that essentially if Oman doesn't play ball, Trump might strike them as well. Bomb the S out of them is how he actually put it. Okay, actually, there's a good question here. Wait, Mami, I think you
Wait, I'm sorry, we have another question when you're ready.
Okay, so I'll finish this topic and then
okay.
Now, recently Brad Cooper was in Israel, and then he visited a bunch of Persian Gulf countries, and also was on the USS Abraham Lincoln. This has happened before, but the U.S. is at the very least ready for combat if necessary. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Holder.
All right, Shauna says, will U.S. or Israel go hard if they touch our boats?
Yes. So Israel will not go hard if they touch U.S. boats, because unless, like, we'll go hard as soon as we have the go ahead. If they actually hit the boats, presumably something more will have to happen. Not necessarily the whole go ahead, but Trump would have to strike them. But they're not going to be able, like, there's so many defenses on the USS Abraham Lincoln and the other carriers. I highly doubt, and they're also like in the middle of the sea. You have to precisely strike the target, otherwise you fall in the ocean. And I don't think they'll be able to do that, especially since they also don't like have the coordinates properly. And even if like they send drones to get the coordinates, the ship can move slightly. So I think it's going to be very hard for them to strike them with the kind of weaponry they have. They would need a navy, and they don't have one, as Trump has repeatedly stated. Okay. Any other questions?
Doesn't look like it. Oh, okay. Shauna says, I meant like in a joint attack. And then she says, what about the new oil route?
You'd have to be more specific with that question, because I can interpret it in several ways. A joint attack would happen when the U.S. tells Israel that it would happen. Israel would gladly do a joint attack if it's substantive enough. It's just about the U.S. deciding that this is the way to go, and for them to decide this is the way to go, like, it depends on their own considerations, most of which we don't know. Okay. And so please, Shauna, please clarify the question about the oil routes. Okay. And so also, how do you think this will affect relations between Pahlavi and Trump remaining 2 years? Who would align best with what has happened? What?
She did expand. She said the Arabs are building a new land route for oil. Or she questions them.
Yeah. So in 2 years, the Strait of Hormuz is not going to be relevant. Like, part of IMEC and those kinds of deals are partly going to make it less relevant. But apparently, like, from what U.S. officials are saying right now, and they do have an interest to lie there, so take it for what it's worth. But apparently, it's already been pretty well, like, thwarted or taken care of. Okay, and Rebecca, thank you for the super chat. So you read my comment in the side chat while refusing to acknowledge my existence. Interesting. I don't refuse to acknowledge your existence. Thank you for paying money, by the way. I just refuse to engage with you on a personal level and find you disgusting. Those are different things. By the way, for everyone, like, this is an internal joke. Like, Rebecca is my nemesis. This is not serious. Okay, and thank you for the super chat, Rebecca. Ali Zomenta is saying, Am Israel Chai from Iran. Shalom and Durud, everyone. Yes, thank you, and Javid Shah. Alex is saying, hope you get your own channel monetized soon. Yes, so do I. If you want to help me monetize it, please subscribe. It's in the description, the link to the channel. At this moment, I have 758 subscribers. So I need to get 1,000 subscribers and also 4,000 hours of watch time, I think. And we're inching our way towards both. All right. And thank you for the super chat. Okay. Anything else in the chat before I move on to the next topic? Halda? Okay, I'm gonna have to check myself.
Sorry, I had my cursor on a different screen. Nope, nothing is here.
Okay, great. What else? So the Houthis keep testing Saudi Arabia and the new Mecca agreement, and unsurprisingly, no one's actually doing anything yet. Okay, so yeah, that would be helpful. So Koala Katie is saying, oh dear, okay, I'll hop over to Guy's channel to help with those watch time. Thank you. Yes, if you can do that, except for the people who are sending super chats, stay on Liberty Politics, because I can get super chats there on my channel. But whoever can hop over to my channel, that'll be very useful to me. Mama is saying, I just like your video. Thank you. That'll be very useful to me because it gets my watch time up to the point of being monetizable. So the Houthis keep testing Saudi and the Saudi and the Mecca agreement. And so far, there hasn't been direct response from Turkey and Pakistan, although Turkey has seemingly sent weapons and also training, like help with training to Saudi Arabia. And so they are doing stuff. I don't want to say they're not doing anything, but so far the agreement is not enforced, at the very least, and so it doesn't look as threatening. However, there are some things to keep in mind that might be problematic, especially from an Israeli perspective. So Turkey, the Erdogan, the president of Turkey, has said that the continued Israeli strikes on Lebanon is a great cause for concern for us. We got from a guarantee from Trump with regards to the F-35 aircraft, and we expect him to keep it. It looks like Europe is not interested in Turkey joining the EU. I will visit Syria soon, and Turkey cannot leave Gaza alone and will do whatever it takes to support it. Several of these articles are problematic from an Israeli perspective. One is he's commenting on things that he should have nothing to do with, namely Lebanon. He's trying to expand his influence towards the areas that are surrounding Israel. Two, I will visit Syria soon. Now, he already has a lot of influence over Syria. Syria is the main cause of concern for Israel from a Turkish perspective. It's less likely that we'll have a hot war over several countries. But the worry is that Turkey will entrench itself into Syria in a way that would then allow it to attack Israel in a hot war. And since they keep talking about, oh, Israel is such a problem, we can't leave Gaza alone, they're continuing a genocide, and so on. This is something that, he is eyeing Israel very, very hardly. At the same time, let me find the rest of it. When talking about the option of a war with Israel, Erdogan said, we're not talking about war, we're talking about peace. But if someone attacks Turkey, because the intent for war and not peace, Turkey will not hesitate to fight and will not run from the battle. And I say this completely clearly and openly. The issue is that the new accord, the new Mecca agreement, the new Mecca agreement is a defense pact. And so whatever they can interpret as Israel striking Turkey, expands greatly because of it. Because the defense pact says that an attack on one of the countries is an attack on all of them. And so if they, for example, add Syria to the battle and add Egypt, or not to the battle, to the agreement, and add Egypt to the agreement, this then becomes a problem for Israel. Because if we see them raising forces in order to attack Israel, Israel would have to strike and prevent that. Actually, Israel did that to Syria today. There were alarming levels of military entrenchments by Turkey in Syria. And so apparently, this has been reported outside of Israel, and I don't know if it's true, but apparently what happened is that Israel struck an airport in Syria that previously, the previous day or earlier that day, Turkish forces came and inspected and are trying to make it operational again. But Trump is signaling that he is very much pro-Turkey. So he both said, very happy to see that Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan have recently and finally signed the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement. Shows how the Middle East is coming together and how countries will finally be able to defend themselves in a more meaningful way. Congratulations to the great leadership of the three nations mentioned. This is a big, bold, and important first step. Wow, President Donald J. Trump. And then again, earlier today, right, which coincides with the morning in the U.S., Tom Barak, which is the ambassador to Turkey, by the U.S. ambassador to Turkey, said, we're deeply concerned that the confirmed Israeli airstrikes on Abu Dhuhr airbase continue an unnecessary escalation that does not advance regional stability. The Shara government has neither adopted a predatory posture nor maintained proxy forces. It has, in fact, repeatedly indicated a preference for de-escalation with Israel. In parentheses, remember that there was a report a few days ago that Israel got news that an Arab country got instructions or recommendations from another Arab country to sign an agreement with Israel in order to arm itself and to be able to fight it better in the future. Okay, I'll quickly look at the comments in a second. But this is like this, you have to take that into account because that country, it wasn't revealed which country it is, but it's Syria. There's no other country that this would make sense for. It's not Lebanon because Lebanon has completely different interests. The United States has in the past and will continue in the future to host discussions to encourage diplomatic cadence over kinetic frustration for both nations. Enduring de-escalation agreements are built through sustained dialogues with all concerned nations and principles. The United States continue to believe that restraint and engagement offer the more constructive course. We encourage all parties to prioritize logical discourse over further military incidents. This completely ignores what we know about why they would want talks. Okay, so Mama's asking, will I address your question? I want to address your question. It seems like it starts in the middle, like I don't see all of it. But I have put a pin in it to get back to it. Okay, so finally, I want, I'll just share it myself, I guess. No, okay, this is going to be difficult to do. There's a video of Syrian soldiers saying, and I quote, like chanting. It's in Arabic, but you'll have to trust me that this is what it says. Gaza is the slogan, bombings and destruction. I'm coming for you, Jew. I am coming for you with a mountain of fire. From my blood, I will make ammunition, and from your blood, I will make rivers. That's not a very peaceful slogan to be chanting. So we can't just trust these people, and they can sign agreements, but as we know from having a long history in the region, they're not going to honor the agreements. So you can't just trust them to honor the agreements as if they sign the agreements, that doesn't mean they're going to honor them, and we have to assume that they're not going to when we deal with these people. Okay. So Judith is saying it all looks really hostile right now for Israel. Not necessarily. There are also good things happening. Turkey is trying to establish itself as a regional hegemon. And Turkey right now under Erdogan is very anti-Israel. That can change though, because Erdogan's regime is not as airtight as like the Islamic Republic, and he can't afford to do as much as the Islamic Republic is doing to prevent unrest and disapproval. And his country is going through a lot of difficult stuff as well, with oil and so on. Okay, so yeah. So your question, how do you think this will affect relations between Pahlavi and Trump remaining 2 years? So he said also, and I didn't see the previous comment. So, Mame, so if you can post again what you wrote in the original comment. And I also don't know. I don't know what this is. So that's why I haven't responded yet. But if you post the whole question or the beginning of the question, then I'll be able to respond better. So Axon says, perhaps it is worth to talk about Syria. Remind non-Israelis why Israel won't budge over the Druze and why it is important that we can operate freely over its sky, or else regarding the Islamic Republic. So operating over its sky, I'll deal with that first because it's simpler. Is related to the U.S. Like, if the U.S. wants us to operate over their sky, they'll allow us to operate over their sky. That's not an issue. Like, if we're at war with Iran again, or with the regime, this would be with U.S. approval, and as a result, we will be able to travel over Syrian airspace. Now, the other part is I highly, highly, highly recommend everyone to look up the Druze massacre in Sweda, Sweida. Let me quickly. So sorry. This is how you spell it. There is a Druze village or city there, and El Jalani's soldiers absolutely massacred them last year. And the Druze in the Golan Heights, the parts that Jalani wants back, are scared for their lives. So Israel keeping the Golan Heights is actually like a humanitarian thing to keep an ethnic and religious minority intact. Israel is the only country that is helping Sweden right now. They're being constantly bombarded and assaulted. And that's why we can't trust these people. The Syrian army is filled with ISIS, essentially. And thank you for the comment, Erickson. Okay, Northwest Chickpea. Inquiring minds would like to know. Is this Shauna? Based on the image. Inquiring minds would like to know why your nemesis is better dressed than you. Solomon came in a tux like a gentleman and a scholar. Solomon may have come in a tux, but Solomon is not a gentleman. No, it's neither part of that word. It's not gentle and not a woman and not a man. And I don't think, just based on how she talks and the intelligence she espouses, I don't think she's a scholar either. So the tux is aimed at hiding that fact. Thank you for the super chat, Northwest Chickpea. Marigold is asking, did Trump sell those F-35s to Turkey? Not yet. There will be some hoops that would have to be jumped over. We'll see if it ends up going through. Egypt is smart and not part of the Mecca agreement for now, but it's a potentiality we have to take into account, and it is a problem if it happens. Erickson is saying, if Israel can't freely operate over Syria, it will be more difficult to hit for us to hit the Islamic Republic. Okay, I responded to that, and then you had another comment, I think. Guy, if Syria joins the Mecca Accords with Turkish anti-air defense, it is a huge issue, no matter what the U.S. says. The hope is that the regime falls by then. I agree with you. I completely agree with you. It's just that, first of all, if the U.S. tells Syria to allow Israel over its airspace to bomb the regime, then it's not going to be a problem. If the U.S. doesn't do that, then this becomes a bigger issue. And right now, that's one of the reasons Israel is preventing that kind of establishment of Turkey in Syrian territory. Okay. So Elite 02K, I'm Iranian born in Shiraz. We love Jewish people in Israel. I apologize for what we were going through. We share the same enemy, and I hope one day I can come visit Israel and all this hate will end. Thank you for the super chat, Elite Zero. I completely agree with you. Amen. Like when I joined Armin's discussion group, that was the first thing I said. This is the first time at the time it was 2.5 years that I've felt not lonely as an Israeli, because I felt like there is a group of people that is a kindred spirit to us Israelis that completely understand what we're going through and what we're fighting. And that's the Iranian people. And I've already committed myself, once Iran is free, I will learn Persian and I will come to Iran. And I can't wait for that to happen. And like, I really, words can't express. I think some of the people here have seen my genuine reaction to this before. I'm literally like holding back tears right now. Like you're saying like you apologize for what we're going through. No, you're going through so much worse. The Iranian people. We're gonna manage, but we need to get rid of the regime. And yes, when you come visit Israel, also I'll personally show you around. So thank you. And thank you for the super chat. Okay. Whew. Halder, is there anything in the chat?
Yes. We do have a few things.
Okay.
Amy wants you to know that her name is pronounced like Mame.
Okay.
Mame. And she also wants to know, and I also have another question after this. She also wants to know if you know about the Dearborn Christian revival today. You know, the bikers from Sturgis they started to arrive there yesterday.
So I've heard very briefly. I've seen it like as a title pop around. I don't know the details, but I've heard there's like Christians trying to take back an occupied city that has completely become Muslim. Actually, I think Shia Muslim specifically. In Dearborn, Michigan. And I'm all for it. Like America, the good thing is that America is now like it's starting in America, but America is seeing what's happening in Europe, and a lot of people are going to respond way more proactively. And also in general, Americans tend to be more right wing than Europeans. So I'm glad this is happening, and more of this should happen. This kind of enclave creation should not be allowed in America.
Well, I agree with that. Let's see. Shauna says, she says, Turkey shouldn't be in NATO. And what do you think, Guy?
Shouldn't be NATO, right?
Yes, should not be in NATO.
Yeah, the current Turkey, Turkey being in NATO is a holdover from more friendly days. Israelis used to go to Turkey on vacation a lot. Erdogan has slowly turned Turkey into a part of the Muslim Brotherhood, although there are also young people in general, because of the internet and so on, are leaving in Islam silently. And that's also true in Turkey. The thing is, I don't take NATO seriously anymore, as sad as it is to say. Like, what's NATO, right? It's supposed to be against Russia. Russia is probably going to test this. It's probably going to attack, for example, Poland, one of the only countries that has like a decent standing army in Europe. And what do you think France is going to actively go to war with Russia or the UK for that matter, with their 3-ship navy over Poland? Like, it's not. I think NATO is a relic of different times, and it's just not relevant anymore. Now, I don't mind that Turkey is in NATO personally, because despite what a lot of Turkish analysts think, Israel doesn't really think about you all that much. You're not that, like, we don't want to fight you. Just stay in Turkey. We'll stay in Israel. And there's no reason for us. The problem is that Erdogan is encroaching on the Middle East. He's trying to recreate the Ottoman Empire. And so he's using the excuse of Greater Israel that, like, originally historically gets into slivers of Turkey as well. But the thing is that no one in Israel actually wants Greater Israel, or like as a serious, like, yes, let's conquer everything and get to Greater Israel. It's not a thing. At the most, people are, like, the broad majority are interested in Judea and Samaria being under Israeli sovereignty, partially because the Palestinian Authority has been wrecking historical records and archaeological evidence of the Jewish Empire in the, like, the Judaic Empire, or it wasn't really empire, but the Judaic kingdom in the region from over 2,000 years ago. So, like, that's as far as Israelis want to go. No one has an appetite to take over Jordan. It's not a thing. You might have some, like, really fringe figures say that stuff incendiarily, but it's not like those figures. So, for example, in Likud, you've had members of parliament talk about this. All those members are way down the list as a result. Like, people don't want this. This is not what Israelis want. It's just a fringe, and when social media just, like, amplifies that fringe, making it seem like that's what Israelis are thinking. By the way, even Ben-Gvir would not say this. I don't know what he thinks. I've never once heard him talk about this. I think even Ben-Gvir does not want Israel to take over the east bank of the Jordan River, which is Jordan, or not to mention anywhere else that's part of Greater Israel. Yeah.
I have a number of responses. Shauna, to the previous discussion about the bikers, wanted to remind you that Americans are armed to the teeth. And then Yehuda said, you mean the Christian enclaves in Sunni France or the more tiny Jewish ones? And then, do you want to answer those, or do you want me to keep on going?
I think they're self-explanatory.
Okay, and then Shauna says, I think NATO needs to end, or America needs to leave it. We should be in our alliance in our own hemisphere, or our hemisphere, I'm sorry. And I think, and then Jose.
Okay, so let me respond to that real quick. I disagree. Okay. I think American influence, this would be like the kind of thing that J.D. Vance might advocate for. I think American influence is important, but I think it's also true that Trump is actually, like, shaping up the Europeans. Like, listen, you can't mooch off of us and have the Europeans are doing what people accuse Israel of doing, like getting money from America and then using that money to, or the fact that they don't have to spend the money that they're getting to have, like, social housing and welfare and so on. And that's not true. It's not true about Israel. Israel gets a tiny minority, a very small minority of its budget, of its military budget, from the U.S. That is then used as a subsidy back to the U.S. to help American businesses. But the Europeans are mooching off of American military aid, so that they felt like they don't need to have an army, and so they were able to spend budgets on things that are luxuries that no country before, like, has had, and now they have a quality of life that no politician is going to be willing to give up. even though it's the right thing to do economically, because this is not sustainable, and so they have to import people, and that's how we got in this mess in the first place. But so they should lift their own weights. They should carry their own weights, rather. But it is important for the U.S. to have regional alliances in different regions. Like you do want that. You want the U.S. to be the hegemon, because otherwise China will try to take over, and you don't want China to put its foothold in Europe. So I disagree with that. Thank you for the question. And Halder, what's the next
Okay,
one?
we have Jose has a 2, and then we have a response from Shauna
Okay, great.
to
Jose?
answer your specific comment. Jose?
Okay. I happen to agree with you that NATO has outlived its usefulness. And I also agree with your reply that the United States needs to stay a titular world power for a lot of reasons. Yes, me and Monkey started a conversation. It's going to take 3 episodes on his show about South America yesterday. And we ended up talking, because of the way the chat went, about specific events that have happened recently in South America, not about the overall, what appears to be the overall
Trend.
Trump-Rubio plan for South America, or what it appears to be to us. Okay? And the changes. We first started with simply explaining to people that what's happening in South America is something that the South Americans have never experienced before. The U.S. has never given 2 rats' ass about anything south of the Mexican border. And now it looks like they actually give a shit. Okay? And they're actively sending troops in, or advisors in, to help probably CIA agents, to help the various governments combat their cartels. And there are actually seen movement of cartel members fleeing those countries and heading elsewhere. Nicaragua and most likely Mexico being their targets of new relocation. But what people don't understand is that's just going to bring more strife to those 2 countries. Okay? And without the United States as a global power, you've just surrendered all of Europe to the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though they're having a problem with a former Soviet satellite in the Ukraine, does not mean that, and Poland will push them back for a bit, especially if Ukraine helps them.
Yeah.
But how far can Ukraine stretch itself? That's the question. And you have to think about that when you're thinking about Russia, because although I do think Putin's days are numbers, I don't know if he's got enough backing to survive the internal political turmoil that he's currently facing. Because it seems to get hot 1 week and goes very cold for 2 weeks.
You mean
Then it
Putin?
heats up again. Putin, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I thought before I saw a trend, I can no longer say that the trend is there. I say that we got a wave going on. We got peaks and valleys, and he's riding the wave. He's been an excellent surfer right now. When he falls off the board, different story. But right now, he's surfing the wave just beautifully.
Another thing to keep in mind is that the waves are heading towards rocks.
Yes, yeah, that's just he'll fall. But although I understand that, I also understand this. North Korea just sent more soldiers to help Putin with the Ukrainians.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like North Korea is aligning themselves with Russia, not with China.
Okay. So my understanding is that the strain between China and Russia is like a medium level strain. So they're not mutually exclusive. And presumably China doesn't need the soldiers. Russia does. And it could also be, so I've seen some reports that China is actually helping Russia in a way that actually makes China sort of own Russia. So like they're taking over parts of Russia in the same way that Russia did to Ukraine, by sending people there, and then they'll be able to say, well, the majority of the people there are Chinese, so this should actually be part of China. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a deal behind the scenes of like why North Korea would do that. That would that is actually like part of creating more debt from Russia to China.
Yeah, could be. Honestly,
and
that could very well be.
And that, by the way, also puts in a different light the Trump's recent comments about the Koreas.
Yeah. Well, you should be able to understand that real easy. The South Korean government has gone very socialist in the latest elections, and Japan might be, shall we say, the only ally we have in that particular part of the world, in the northern Pacific.
Yes.
Because South Korea, under this new government, is not necessarily
Pro-West.
Yeah. So it kind of throws a wrench into the entire anti-China defense pact, because South Korea was an essential part of that. And it just it did not materialize until very recently that South Korea was also a problem, politically speaking.
Yeah. That's, I mean, that's all very true. What was I going to say? I mean, South Korea is also very much in trouble. Like, it's the most demographically collapsing country in the world. So, have like, I think like 0.7 children per household. So, I mean, they're on their way down regardless. There was another issue, like the previous pro-West president or whatever it was, like tried to do a coup of some kind. No.
Yeah, he did. Yep, he's in jail. But it's still, the news reports were so disjointed about that coup that I can't trust anything that came out. You know, it was like talking CNN, talking to CNN, talking to CNN, talking to CNN. You know, each building the story the other one said. So it was kind of worthless. So we don't know what actually happened. Whether he was trying a coup to prevent the socialists from taking over, that's a possibility. But at the same time, you know, all countries go through their phases. And as long as you don't have a dictatorship in charge, the people still have a choice.
Yeah.
You know, it's just unnerving that what I thought was a safe bet in the defensive arc against China, is now a weak link.
Yes.
I know their military would back up the other powers and go against China, but will the government allow them to?
Right.
That's the big question.
I think the solution to China is to isolate them. Like, once you take care of Iran and take care of Russia, they're going to be very isolated. They're not going to have a lot left.
Honestly, not enough left. Just leave them alone. They're having issues.
Yeah. I've recently started following like internal Chinese channels. Like, Xi Jinping has a lot of trouble that he's in. They're trying to, like, the party is fractured, very fractured.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, exactly. Just leave them alone. Make sure they don't take over Taiwan.
Well, right now they got a problem. They can't land anybody. They don't have landing ships. They have ferry boats, big, great big, chunky ferry boats that that
easy
have to go from
targets, ferry
England.
boats.
You got that right.
Yeah.
Yeah, with little tiny ramps that only soldiers can get off on. So how they gonna land their tanks, their armored
Yep.
vehicles, or missile carriers? It's just one of those things where if they have them, if they have them somewhere else, or they've been developing them, which they could have been, they've never landed a maritime invasion in their entire history.
Yes, and like they don't they don't actually have enough military experience.
Yeah.
Like they have
Well,
soldiers that know things in theory, but unless you've actually participated in battle, that's why the Israeli military is so effective, and that's why the Ukrainian military is so effective. So much so that they beat the U.S. in mock combat in Germany recently. Just when you have actual fighting experience, it's way better than whatever you can think up in theory.
Yeah, because you already know what will work and what won't work, and
Yeah.
having ideas and the like. But I think the biggest problem China's had recently is Xi's grab for total permanent power has resulted in the death of 17 Chinese generals,
Yeah.
and these are their top boys. I don't think there's a single remaining major general that commanded a significant force that's still among the not in jailed or dead.
And
So it's nasty.
and that's creating a second order effect where generals are not going to do what they think is right or militarily effective. They're going to lie, first of all, about what the actual situation is, about what the capabilities are, and they're going to play it very, very safe in their decisions, so that they can keep their own personal skin. Like that's eventually dictatorships go to this point where they have such huge blind spots that they collapse under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's breaking news from like 30 minutes ago. Trump put out a Truth Social post saying there are no talks or conversations going on or scheduled with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The naval blockade remains in full force. In effect, the Hormuz Strait is open and operating. All water mines have been removed or detonated. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So that's good. We don't want negotiations. We want the regime to fall. And if you can do it this way, great. I think you'll have to. I agree with Ali. You'll have to do like a decapitation strike to get everything going, so that they're completely like disoriented. But good. Like keep the blockade on. It's the best thing we have right now. Okay, and then so some comments about what we were talking about just now. So Richie Hall, my brother-in-law said Trump asked Peru to help combat the drug cartels. He said Peru agreed to help. Makes sense to me. And Bobo is saying, sorry, wishful thinking, but Putin is staying. Russians love a czar. They have no democratic tradition. So the second part does not entail the first part or necessarily lead to the first part. I agree with the second part. They don't have a democratic tradition. But that doesn't mean that Putin himself personally is staying. And whoever comes into power after him might have more willingness to play ball with the West. Because if you're not trying to rebuild, or it's also possible that the Russian Federation will fracture, because it is made up of several smaller entities. And so just the problem is that Putin himself, Ukraine is a failure. Ukraine is an abject failure for Russia. And now the Russians are starting to feel the heat because since Wildberries are sending weaponry to troops, they have become legitimate military targets. And Ukraine hit the biggest one, and that's like the Amazon. It's like, in some ways, it's bigger than Amazon because I think it's more centralized in the sense that most people buy there. I could be wrong, though. But out of 30 of their large facilities, 14 have been completely destroyed, and 3 more have been partially damaged through Ukrainian drones. And Ukraine has mastered its droning creation capability. It scales, like they send out a few hundred every night. And Russians are feeling the heat, like actual Russians. And so you're starting to see displeasure. And Putin is very weak. The economy is very weak. The economy is running on fumes because they have a military economy. They have the Norway problem. Like there's a name for it. Where their whole economy is based on one thing. In Norway, it was oil, and then they had to fix it. In Russia, it's war. And so once Russia is no longer at war, essentially its entire economy is going to collapse. And this is going to cause great unrest. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I address the issue that he brought up about they wanting a czar?
Mhm.
Okay, well, there's a problem with that. The real rulers of Russia are the oligarchs.
Yes.
Oligarchs basically are the Russian version of the mafia. So I don't think they want anything resembling a centralized authority. And that is who Putin needs to fear, is the oligarchs. And the oligarchs need to fear the people under them. You know?
Yeah.
Because from the bottom rises to the top. So that's where the biggest threat to Putin comes, is the very mafioso type government that the Russian currently is running. Everybody thinks it's just Putin by himself. Yes, he is in a lot of ways. However, these other people are making decisions just as well and will determine his fate eventually.
I mean, I can also see like a national uprising taking him down. Like they'll decide his fate based on external pressure from the population that they have to manage. But they would not mind killing him. They're not above like just eliminating him and putting someone else in his place. But again, like Russia is going to go through a major crisis, and what comes out of on the other end could be very different. And apparently, there's a new analysis that Iran has lost the battle for Hormuz based on the American administration's data. They're already starting to fill up almost all of the deficit made up from Hormuz. So that's good. And also apparently, that's lovely. Okay, so Syria has now done a press release or a press conference rather. Again, this is breaking news. Apparently, Syria has nuclear material that is remaining from the previous regime's attempts at a nuclear reactor that Israel bombed. That would have been a major problem for the world had they completed. And the Syrian Minister of Foreign Affairs just had a press conference with Rafael Garoussi, the head of the International Agency for Atomic Energy, the IAEA. And the minister is saying these nuclear materials will stay under Syrian control, subject to assurances by the IAEA. And we emphasize that Syria has a right to use nuclear energy for peaceful and civilian purposes, and will work to ensure the conditions to handle these materials and store them safely. And so that's not fun. yeah, that. So I've heard of like discussions about secretly getting rid of this material, and maybe now because Israel attacked, they like shifted. It's no, this has been in the works for a while. Galusi doesn't just happen to be there. But like, apparently those talks fell through. This isn't good news. Eventually, like if it comes to it, Israel will have to strike Syria, and it's going to be way easier than striking Iran in that sense. But it's another thing that's problematic to keep in mind. Okay. Any questions? Do we have any questions, Hulda? Or comments?
Sorry, I had to step away, and I asked
okay.
if somebody would step in for me. I know Shauna said that let me find it. She said Shanghai versus Beijing are not in line. I don't know. That would be
interesting.
I guess what we were talking about earlier.
So, yeah,
and
so it's
Yehuda has a 2 when you're done with that.
Okay.
And then I'll
so
be
that's
away.
Okay. Thank you, Hulda. I don't know about the specific geographical relations. I know there are tensions. I don't know what they relate to. So, Jose, if you know more. Oh, Jose disappeared. Okay, but that's interesting. Thank you, Shauna. And Yuda. Okay, there's Jose. Yeah, Jose, do you know anything?
Yeah, they okay. Both Putin and Xing went to North Korea independently of each other, about 2 weeks apart. Putin left with a big smile on his face, a lot of handshakes and the like, and Xi got the Trump treatment from the North Korean. So there's something there. I also know that Putin went to China just before that and did not leave that happy either. Maybe I'm just thought. Maybe the thought. Maybe he was asking for 500,000 Chinese troops to help in the war in Ukraine, and Xi said no.
Yeah,
maybe I don't know.
Could be.
But I mean, there's apparently a little coldness between the two larger communist powers. But you're right. There's no mean that doesn't mean shit. In the world in general, because you don't know if that's also a feint on their end.
Yeah.
So it's not something that it's there, and it's always been there. You got to remember, Khrushchev told Mao that collectivism was not the way to go. It'll destroy his country, and Mao told pretty much just, "Yes, sir, boss. Yes, sir, boss. Yes, sir, boss. Collectivism, guys. 45 million Jews. 45 million."
Yeah.
Chinese people died in 4 years because of collectivism and the beginning of the Great March,
Yes.
because they didn't listen to each other. So that could be happening again.
Yep. Okay, agreed. All right, Yuda, you had
You had 3 points. One, it's not the defense tract, the mecha tract. Why? Then second, why a country that doesn't want thorium doesn't want civilian use for nuclear energy. And third, for a dirty bomb, you have to have the product in place because it burns up in the atmosphere.
So can you repeat those questions? I didn't quite.
Okay, if you want to use the uranium that is not enough enriched, you have not enough for a critical mass for a nuclear.
Oh, you're breaking up.
Nuclear bomb. Then you, if you send it by with a rocket atmosphere, it's useless. But you can do it Putin style, put it in the tea. Yeah, you know that they kill people with putting plutonium T. So if you have people on the ground that already imported the radioactive material, then you can do a very dirty terrorist attack, but you can't send missiles. Second,
Yeah,
there
like a
was a
dirty
Houthi
bomb.
aggression against there was a Houthi aggression this weekend against Saudi Arabia, and Turkey and Pakistan did nothing. But Pakistan before thought it's yeah, we have to destroy Israel. So it's if it was a defensive pact, then they would have reacted in defense because Saudi Arabia was already aggressed. They did not. So I think it's an aggression pact.
I think it's supposed to be a deterrent pact. Now, I agree that eventually it will turn once they get everyone together. It will turn into an aggression pact against Israel. That is a problem to keep in mind.
You can't put it as aggression pact without having the United States defense.
Yeah, I think like because NATO is actually a defensive pact, but I think they'll also have problems if this kind of thing happens. Like they're not actually going to apply the defense that they claim to apply. So I wouldn't take that as the thing to hang your hat over, that this is an offensive pact. But we have to assume that this is an offensive pact until proven otherwise, and it's not going to be proven otherwise. There's no way to prove
if
that.
You saw the Warsaw Pact was called a defensive pact, but if you saw the plannings and the armament, it was for taking over. It wasn't offensive pact.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple comments from Shai Hagadol. Bibi's losing the election. He's too corrupted. The Israelis do not trust Bibi on anything. I believe you're in what's called an epistemic bubble, meaning that all the people around you think this way, but you're not seeing the people who aren't. I think there's way less of a consensus than you're thinking, and I think you're gonna get surprised by the elections by how much the right gets. I don't think it's going to be quite to the level of the Filbert polls, but I think it's going to be somewhere between the Filbert polls and where the major channels polls are. Okay. See here, we have someone. What them is saying, "I trust Bibi." So, yeah. Okay. Anything else in the chat? Halda's not here, but can someone check? Yuda, can you check?
I'm back. I just got back.
Oh, okay, great.
I don't see. Yehuda had a 2.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, great. So, a few more news from around the world, and then I'll have to go soon to because I have another stream with Armin, and like I'm in the stream with Armin and Monkey and Sid. So the U.S. is starting to crack down on the Muslim Brotherhood in America. Like there are actions. It's not a lot came out, but they are starting to fight back against Islamism in America, so that's good. China seems to be funding pro-Palestine marches. There are a lot of resources that are being pushed to turn Israel into a pariah in the West's eyes. And I think the reason is that Israel is the only one that has its eyes open. I mean, now Ukraine does as well. But Israel is the only like they're trying to create a wedge against Israel and that leads me to think that they think Israel is a key to keeping the West together. So back to Shai Gadol. Only marginalized people in Israel trust Bibi. They do not join the IDF, work, or anything. They're anarchists. Again, please diversify your sources. This is just wrong on a factual level. You can see now that the religious Zionists are the most combative soldiers, like the most in active combat roles in Israel. They have the most deaths, like per capita, in the recent war. This is just fundamentally not true. It's not. It's a demonization of people you don't agree with. Now, there are people that I also criticize. I also criticize a lot of Likud voters, for that matter, and religious Zionist voters, and Ben Gvir voters, and ultra-Orthodox voters. But it's not like, this is a very simplistic take that is just wrong, and I highly recommend that you diversify your sources of information, because I know people who have these kinds of takes, and usually they're not as informed as they think they are about what the discourse in Israel is around them. They're very familiar with one side of the discourse. You should be familiar with all sides to be able to make up your mind. There's a famous quote: "He who knows only his own side knows little of that as well." So Daydreamer is asking, isn't there a reason Israelis used to nickname Bibi Hakosem? I'm no Israeli. I don't vote, so I won't criticize anyone. This is not about being pro or isn't there a reason Israelis? So he's called Hakosem, the magician, not because like people who hate him also call him that. It's just that he's very good at elections and getting the result that he wants in the elections. That's not a positive or negative statement about him as a politician or like how effective he is. He's good at getting votes. That's what Hakosem means. Shai Gadol. So Shai, except the religious people, they are messianic. They are after the Gog and Magog war, and the Mashiach will save them. I know them, you don't. So thank you for telling me whom I do and do not know. Like this is ridiculous. Okay, you don't know me. You don't know what people I interact with. You don't know whether I have religious Zionist friends. You don't know how many. And also this like generalization of groups, like it's not. This is not serious. This is not serious analysis. Okay. Freedom to Gargamel. Wasn't it Eyal Berkovich? No, it wasn't quite Eyal Berkovich who made that quote. Okay.
Hey, Guy, could you
Yeah.
tell us where you're reading these from, please?
So they're in we're also streaming live on YouTube. And these are the YouTube comments.
Thank you.
Okay. You said I live in a bubble. Yes, North Tel Aviv people are extremely rich. Don't bother about them. That's not what I mean by bubble. That is not at all what I mean by bubble. I'm not going to get into it now, but this just proves to me that you're not even understanding what I'm trying to say. It's not about wealth. It's about epistemics. You're living in an epistemic bubble. And you think you know the people you're against, but you really, really don't. Okay, so recently Saudi Arabia has, there's been a report, I think this has been years in the making, but Saudi Arabia has changed its curriculum to be way less anti-Semitic and anti-Christian and way more West accommodating. That doesn't mean, in my mind, that they're going to be on the side of, like that right now, they're leaning West. This is, I think, a trailing indicator of where they were several years ago. But it is a good sign, but it could also change. Like in 3 years, we could find out if they're going to stick with the pivot to being more Islamist. Then I can see this changing back. Okay. Any questions so far about these topics? Okay, so while you look for those, a quick update. So remember, I said in the beginning of the stream, the Zionist Home said we won't sit under Netanyahu in any government. As I predicted, as we were doing the stream, they had to issue a clarification that they don't really mean it, essentially. They'll be fine sitting under Netanyahu because the people who vote for them want a unity government. They don't want a left-wing government. They don't want an anti-Netanyahu government. They want a unity government. And so if the people are if that's what they think, then these people will not be able to have a small narrow government. So Shai, again, I know all kinds of religious people from Neturei Karta to the students of Rabbi Kook. I know them very well. This is why we should worry. I don't think you know them. I think you know of them. And I think that's a very, very different thing. So you know the sects, okay? So you have the ultra-Orthodox, the Neturei Karta, who are anti-Zionist. Have Kook, like Rav Kook has several different types of people who follow him. Like, again, this is not the way you have talked so far proves to me that you haven't seriously interacted with a wide variety of the people. You have like a stereotype in your mind of what these people are like. Maybe you've interacted with several of them that have that mindset, and that's just a broad generalization. Freedom to Gagama says, let's call them cookies. That's the analysis we came here for. But okay, so I know his teachings. Do you understand that the people that follow Rav Kook also argue about what his teachings mean? Like a lot of them. Like this is not. It's a very in-depth thing that from the outside you're not going to be able to. Tzipora, I assume Tzipora is I think a religious Zionist. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tzipora.
I'm sorry, Guy, could you clarify?
Yeah.
Followers of who?
Harav Kook. So Rabbi Kook is the leading thinker that the religious Zionist movement venerates, like follows, considers like a spiritual leader. One of several, but he's like the leading one. And then you like I've seen a lot of arguments about like how to interpret him, and like their intellectual elites like have a lot of disagreements among themselves. Okay.
Hey, I don't fault a person for their last name, okay? Look at me, huh? Right? Okay.
Okay. All right. So okay, so last thing I'll comment on from Shai because I want to move on. I was working with them all from Jerusalem, etc. That's not what I'm talking about. You can know people working with people is not what I'm talking about. That's not enough to actually understand thoroughly what they think and why. Rambamists and cookies are agreeable people, dude. Yeah, that's my experience as well. By the way, Rambam is like the other, in a sense, like they're not. It's not that they're incompatible because usually people adhere to both. But Rambam was a rationalist and Kook was more of a mystic. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Like I said, that would be the last one I'm responding to because I don't want to derail the stream more than it's already been derailed. Okay, Gaza Board of Peace, really quickly. I talked about this in the last couple of streams as well with Armin. Essentially, Israel seemingly got everything it wanted. Out of the meeting with the Board of Peace, and I'll go through a couple. So Jared Kushner met with Khalil al-Hayeh, who's the Hamas leader. They had an almost 4-hour meeting, then had an almost 4-hour meeting with Netanyahu in Jerusalem. And Netanyahu and Kushner agree that Gaza reconstruction will not begin until Hamas is disarmed, and established working groups on disarmament and public health reconstruction issues. Washington says Israel retains its right to respond to imminent threats or Hamas attempts to rearm. Netanyahu continues to insist the IDF will not withdraw before complete disarmament. So bottom line, Israel is moving meaningfully closer to Israel's demands, but Hamas has not and will not accept this.
I'm sorry, Gaza reconstruction?
Yeah.
For whose benefit?
The Gazans. What like there is going to be a reconstruction once Gaza is demilitarized, so we can have the civilian population that remains, however many remain there and choose not to leave, can have a more decent life, and so on. But the governance is going to be
all
very
for
different.
it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. And yet, maybe this is just propaganda, but what I've seen is very different. The plans, the drawings and so forth. Looks like more construction for like casinos and hotels and all that kind of crap. Gazans can't afford.
No, so there was the Riviera idea. I don't know how serious that still is. Whatever construction happens is going to take more than a decade. But presumably, even if it's a Riviera, then they'll have like servicing jobs there. But
Will they
whatever
own
construction happens. Good question. I don't know. But I don't know. Like, I wouldn't take those plans seriously. Like it's a lot has to happen. Hamas has to disarm first before you actually can get these plans.
Yes, please.
Okay. So one last reply to Shai. You might have had a coffee with them. I know exactly what they believe in and say. I've had years-long intellectual programs with them, actually. And that's all I'm gonna say. Like, I've actually been in their intellectual discourse in intellectual programs that dive deep into these things, among other things. Okay. All right. And so that's the Board of Peace stuff. Now, recently, and this is going to be the last thing I talk about, and then I'll go to Arm and Stream. Israel is starting to fight back. There are organizations now coordinating with each other to fight the Gaza genocide lie. There's a website, GazaGenolie.com. Actually, recently contacted them to potentially give them access to my my resource bank, the anti-propaganda resource bank. If you're interested in seeing it, yeah, about time, writes Fun Son. This is the website, and it's still being founded, but there's like a lot of organizations that are part of this. And this is necessary because, so last week there was some of the more that like the hilltop youth type of settlers, like the extremists, terrorized a Palestinian home, and that Palestinian also happens to be a U.S. citizen. And so now the army is there to keep guard to prevent them from doing it again. This is like, and that's what they're there for. They're there to prevent the Jews from coming in and attacking that house or that village. And in response, the governor of the town, it's called Qusra. He's filming there saying like, look, the IDF soldiers are now sieging the house, which is exactly backwards, because what they're doing is guarding the house from people who are going to like Jews who are going to try to harm the people in it. So both of these things can be true at the same time. You have problems in the West Bank with Jewish extremism that are way less than what you would think if you were to look at external reports. For example, the UN has a report. An Israeli pro-settler entity made a report. It's called Regavim, the movement, made a report showing that essentially only 10% of what the UN considers settler violence can actually be considered settler violence, like reasonably. And it's all like, it's a pro-settler organization, but it's all open source information, so you can go and check it yourself. Like, it's the UN report and just going through line by line. But there are problems, and they should be taken care of. And one of the reasons I don't trust elements of this government, specifically Ben Gvir, is that they're preventing the proper taking care of this problem that a lot of the settlers themselves, like the leaders of the settlers, are also attacking. So it's good that Israel is fighting back, because the propaganda machine is very well oiled. And like, something needs to be done about it. All right. So that's it for me for today. Does anyone have any final questions before I go?
It does not look like we have any questions.
Okay, excellent. So, guys, I will see you. I mean, go watch the stream. It's about to start in 15 minutes. I'll be with Armin and with Monkey and Sid, hopefully, if all of them show up. So serious stuff. I talked about the serious stuff earlier in the stream, so go back and watch the stream. Okay, so Shai is saying those guys are terrorists. They are Gog and Magog war. You do not know them. I literally just said this. I said they are Jewish terrorists. It's just that you think that everyone there has this view. Okay. So yeah, so link in the description to my channel if you're watching from Liberty Politics. I hope you subscribe.
Thanks, Guy.
Yeah,
did a lot of work.
Yeah. And also, if anyone here is interested in learning Hebrew, I have an online course that's bang for a buck, like the best thing you can get to learn Hebrew. Don't have to pay $1,000 per semester, but it is high quality. It's based on years of experience teaching Hebrew. It's called Hebleo, Hebleo.com. Also link in the description. And hopefully I'll see you guys soon in like 10 minutes on the stream. Let me actually link the stream.
Don't forget my Hebrew course and my transbrew course.
Yeah. So I have a Hebrew course, and then Yuda is filling the gap, the demographic back, by having a Shebrew and a transbrew course. So if you want to learn Shebrew and transbrew, go to Yuda's site.
Do you accept Nemesis to take your course?
I will accept Nemesis money, yes. I don't promise that I won't immediately cancel your account after you do, but I do accept the money. Okay, so goodbye, everyone. See you soon in like 10 minutes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.